All right, here we go. Today we have Robert Kiyosaki, one of the best-selling authors of all time, the author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series, which has sold over 40 million copies worldwide and translated into 51 languages. Welcome to Vlad TV.
Well, thank you very much. I'm honored.
Absolutely. I mean, I read the book myself when I was younger, and it definitely had an effect on me in terms of how I looked at money and so forth, throughout my journey.
Well, thank you. Yes.
Okay, well, this is your first time here, so I want to get into your whole story. So you actually grew up in Hawaii.
Correct. I was born in Honolulu, and when I was younger, my father moved to another island. Poor Dad moved to the Big Island. So we went from the big city to a small sugar plantation town called Hilo, Hawaii. And it's the farthest city south in America. So when I say to people I'm from the deep south, I really am from the deep south. It's farther south than Florida.
Okay. Well, your father was a professor, but what did your mother do?
My mother was a registered nurse. And great. I was very fortunate to have good, solid parents. And as you know, today, that's one of the things that's lacking in our society is a lot of times people are raised by single parents or whatever the case may be. And then they go to school, and I don't know what they're teaching them there, but it's not what, I just don't get what they're teaching. I don't know why they're doing it. So anyway, that's my story.
Okay. And your dad was the head of education, the head of the education department of the state of Hawaii.
Correct.
Okay. And he had a PhD. He went to Stanford, Chicago, and I think Northwestern, right?
Well, the absolute truth is my dad never graduated from college.
Oh.
So what happened was he was so smart, poor dad, that he got his bachelor's in 2 years. They gave it to him because he was so far ahead of the thing. And then he went, he became a professor at not Arizona State, but University of Hawaii. And so I grew up in kind of the professor type role, and then he went to Stanford, University of Chicago, Northwestern. But even then he never got a degree, but they gave him an honorary PhD because he was so smart. And meanwhile, he had me as a son, and I was flunking out of school. So, as they say, the cobbler's kids has no shoes. In this case, superintendent of education sons had no brains. So I flunked out of high school twice. I flunked out when I was 15, and I flunked out when I was 17. And it wasn't that I couldn't study. It's just I didn't like school. And but I flunked English because I can't write. And I think that's kind of interesting, huh, Vlad? I flunked English twice when I was 15 and 17 because I can't write. And today I'm a best-selling author. So it just shows you that school is not the be-all, end-all to everybody.
You were going to Hilo High School, and you graduated in 65.
Yeah.
Okay, and then you moved to New York after that?
Yeah, even though I had Fs, I got congressional nominations to Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy. And when I looked at I got my congressman, Senator Danny Inouye. I had bad grades, but high SATs. So he gave me nominations to Naval Academy and Merchant Marine Academy. And I always wanted to go to Merchant Marine Academy to sail the sea. So when they talk about supply chain today, Merchant Marine Academy at Kings Point versus West Point or an Air Force or Coast Guard or Navy or Air Force, Kings Point sent us to sea. So we drove freighters and container ships, tugboats. And I liked oil for some reason. And so I studied oil at Kings Point, New York. And my first job was with Standard Oil of California out of San Francisco. So Kings Point had the distinction back in 65 of being the highest paid graduates in the world. So when I graduated in 69 with a Bachelor of Science degree, starting pay for us was about $120,000 a year. So 69, that was a lot of money. But I had to sail into Vietnam. So if I sailed into Vietnam, I got $120K a year. And also, I had to be a member of the union, the labor union. So the MM&P is called the Masters, Mates, and Pilots. And I didn't want to join the union. So Standard Oil was non-union. And the reason I didn't want to join the union, long story, is in 65, my economics teacher at the academy in New York had us read the Communist Manifesto by Marx. So while everybody was learning about whatever learning economics, he was teaching us about communism. And my economics teacher was a West Point graduate, Army. And he flew B-17s in World War II. And he went down 3 times. So I'm listening to this guy. He's a real stud, you know what I mean? West Point, bomber pilot, went on, got shot down, went to Harvard, came back as economics teacher. And he's talking to me about what it's like to get shot down and get captured. I'm going, holy mackerel, that sounds kind of like fun, you know? So that's a long way of saying it. So I graduated in 69. I don't want to join the union because Marx, as Marx says, workers of the world unite. And poor dad was head of the teachers union, the Hawaii State Teachers Association, HSTA. And I didn't want to join the union. So that's why I took a lower paying job at $48,000 a year. And 69 was still pretty good. And I went to sea. But then it got to me. My economics teacher was a great guy. So when I got back, I went back to visit my school, the academy. I sat down and talked to him. I said, what's it like to fly a B-17? What's it like to get shot down? What's it like to be a prisoner of war? And the more he told me how horrible it was, I said, I want to do that. And so in 1969, I quit a relatively high-paying job of $48K a year, only working 7 months a year. We had 5 months off. So I joined the U.S. Marine Corps, proving I'm not the brightest guy in the box. I went from making $48,000 a month to $200 a month. No, $48,000 a year to $200 a month. And it was a shock. So I went from this, nice cars, all that stuff, to making $200 a month as a Marine lieutenant. And I go to flight school in Pensacola, Florida. And I go into Vietnam. I went to Camp Pendleton, California. I flew the helicopter gunship because I was going to fly the C-130 400 prop job. And it was the most boring thing. I flew once from Pensacola, Florida to California. I said, this is boring. I said, the good thing the C-130 had a coffee pot in it, because otherwise it'd be sound asleep, So it's a long way of saying it. So I'm sitting there and I got back to Pensacola, I'm still a Marine lieutenant. And I say, what's the fastest way to Vietnam? Because my economics teacher at the academy was telling me what it's like to fly and get shot down. And so what's the fastest way to Vietnam? And this is in 1969. He goes, gunships. I said, the helicopter gunship. I said, why gunships? And he said, because they're getting shot down, you idiot. He says, you guys don't last for very long. He says, it's 30 days. Your life expectancy once you got to Vietnam was 30 days. And Vlad, it turned off most people. But being a Marine and proving I'm not the brightest guy in the world, I said, I want to try that. But again, it was my economics teacher from the academy who told me it was like to fly a B-17 and get shot down. I said, man, that's a life experience I don't want to miss. So anyway, by 1972, I'm flying in Vietnam off a carrier helicopter gunship, and I went down 3 times. And it was the best experience of my life. It's hard to imagine that, but exactly what my economics teacher was telling me, guy had me read the Communist Manifesto and all that. And the reason it was good, Vlad, is because in Vietnam, I saw communism. I saw it in real life. Exactly what Marx was saying was happening in real life. And the sad thing, Vlad, is that it's now here in America. Academic system of communists. Just like my poor dad was actually a Marxist, because he never read the Communist Manifesto. But he believed in teachers' union. He believed in the abolition of private property. He believed in taxing the rich. All these things Marx proposed. But because most school teachers have never read the Communist Manifesto, we're teaching communism to our kids today. So that's my long way of answering my question to you is why I'm so messed up.